channel. My name is Kuli. So today we are going to be learning how to make a cow neck jumpsuit. It draped the front, the neck is draped, so it's a cow neck jumpsuit. So we're going to be starting from the down with the down parts. So you get your crotch, you get your starting point. There you take your hip, you measure your hip extension. In this tutorial I use 9.5 inches for her hip extension. You can always take your hip length from your waist. You take your hip length. Please always take your measurements. But if you want to take, if you want to use mine, you're free to use it, but you can always take it. Please, before we proceed, please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification button. Thank you. So I got the knee extension, then I extended the line to get her crotch measurement. I divided her hip by 4, then plus 1 inch allowance. That is her hip measurement. Let's say her hip is 45, is 44. 44 divided by 4, that is 11. 11 plus 1 inch, then that is 12. That is her crotch length. That is what I use as the crotch length. Hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch, that is her hip length. Then I extended the lines to, please, this is jumpsuit, you don't need to minus any band. What you will do is that you will minus your half length to get your full length. Let's say that your half length is 14 plus 2. Let's say that your underbust is 14 plus 2, that is your half length. You don't just take your you don't just put that 14 to look somehow. You must add some inches to it. So I added 2 inches. Her underbust is 14 plus 2, that is 16. After getting the 16, then you minus 16, you remove 16 to get her full length. After getting her full length, then you now place your tape to get your hip length. You don't have to minus 16 again to get your hip length. I just placed it from the starting point. I placed it to get 9.5 for her hip length. Then I got her crotch extension, then her knee. You don't have to minus anything again. Just minus the half length to get her full measurement, which is 58. Then I added 2 inches. I used the whole length. It was 60. The whole length was 60. Then after that, you take your hip measurement. Your hip divide by 4. Please always divide your hip by 4, your waist by 4, then your thighs by 2, your shoulder by 2. After getting your crotch extension, you come down. For the place you take your thigh measurement, you don't just take it on the crotch. Some people take it on the crotch, but I don't do that. You come down by 3 from your crotch length. You come down by 3 inches. That is where you take your thigh measurement. Then your hip, take hip measurement. Hip divide by 4. Your hip circumference divide by 4. Whatever you get, you add 1.5 inches allowance. I got 11, then I added 1.5 inches allowance. Then you take it down to her crotch, then up to the waist. Whatever you get, your hip measurement divide by 4. I got 11. Then I added 1.5 inches allowance, then extended it to her crotch, then to her waist. From her waist, I took, from up the starting point, I took her waist measurement backward. From that hip extension, you place your tape and take your hip measurement, your waist measurement. Her waist is 32 divided by 4, that is 8. I added 1.5 inches allowance. Then I added 1.5 inches allowance, connected it to her waist. Then to get her crotch extension, you will still minus. To get her crotch extension, her back crotch extension, for you to get a perfect crotch extension, you divide that your hip measurement. Her hip is 44. Her hip is 11. That is 44. That's whatever you get after dividing 44. That is 11. You still divide that 11 by 4. By 4 again. Whatever you get, that is what you use as your crotch extension. And that is it. After that, you connect your lines. Connect all the lines and cut it out. Please, to take, as I have a video on how to make a palazzo trouser, is almost the same thing. So in order not to make the video really long, so please watch the video on how to make palazzo. The only difference is that you minus the band for the palazzo, but here you just only minus the half length to get the full length. So there's no point explaining what I have already. So to cut out the back, I traced out the hip line, crotch line, the knee line. So at the back crotch, you come down by half inch, then extend it by 2 inches. The back crotch is long. So I have the video on how to make a palazzo jumpsuit. It's almost the same thing. The difference is that you minus 2 inches here, you just minus the half length. So please watch the video. Let's just make the upper parts, and that is it. So I'm using a pattern paper. You always have to use a pattern paper to draft it out. I'll start by cutting the front back, placing the pattern paper because it was not enough. So I was trying to make it to know the part to use. So I finally got a place to use. Then I wrote out my shoulder line. That is the place that I'll take my shoulder measurement. So I checked to see if the length was up to, was it 15. So here, if you're making a cow neck, due to after making it, the front will drape. So when you add, I don't normally add up to that. For the half length, I don't normally add up to that 2 inches. If the underbust is 14, I add 1 inch because it will still come down. When you add more than that, you notice that the half length is coming down to your lower waist. So it does always, it won't give a nice fitting. So I normally add like 1 inch to cut the up. So please fold your fabric into to fold it, cut it on fold. I did not cut this one on fold because, as you can see, I was trying to manage the pattern paper. So finally I measured her shoulder measurement. Her shoulder is 15 divided by 2, you have 7.5. Then I went down by 1 inch. That is for her shoulder slant. Then I got her chest line. You can measure your chest line by, you can do your chest line 12. You can take your bust divide by 12 plus 1.5 inch allowance. That is to get your chest line. There I used 8. Then I got her half length measurements, and I extended the line. Then I connected the chest line to the shoulder measurements. I connected it in order to draw a perfect armhole. I connected the lines, then took her bust measurement. Her bust is 39 divided by 4. That is, I took her round neck. I used three for the width. I used 3 inches. Then the back neckline, I used 1 inch. Please remember to add your zip allowance. I'll add it when I'm cutting it on the fabric because the pattern paper was not big enough, so I didn't add it here. But remember to add it, your zip allowance. So I went down for the neck width. I went down by 1 inch. Then for the width, I used 3 inches for the width, then 1 inch for the depth. Then I connected the lines. Then do your shoulder slope. Umbrella, you take your bust measurements. Your bust measurements is 39 divided by 4. You have 9.75. Then you add your sewing allowance. That is 2 inches sewing allowance or 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Then I took her waist measurement. Her waist divided by 4. 32 divided by 4, 8 plus, you take your you put down the 8. Then you add your allowance, sewing allowance. Then you know that you get the middle of your armhole. That's where you take your shoulder, your armhole. That's where you connect your armhole from. Then I connected the armhole. Go in from that middle of your armhole. For the front, you go in by half inch. I didn't do it here. Then you connect the shoulder slope and everything, and voila, it is ready. We are ready. The back pattern is ready. Please connect it. I connected it. The pen was not visible enough, so I had to use the white chalk so that it will be visible. So after connecting everything, you cut it out. You got it out. I place it on the fabric to cut out the back. Then remember to add your zip allowance. I used 1 inch for her zip allowance. I took out 1 inch for her zip allowance. I measured it to make sure that it was 1 inch. Then I extended the back neckline. After that, I making sure that everything rhymes together, and we are done with the back. We are done with the back. The back, you split the back zip open. You open it, you divide it into two, like open the zipper. Then time to cut the front. You still do the same thing, place your fabric and all that. Using the pattern paper, you extend your chest line, you extend the lines, then slit it open, split it to up to the armhole side. Please don't cut it out. You open it close to the armhole, but not to cut it out. Just leave like half or quarter of an inch to, that is to drape it, to be able to slash it, and place it on the fabric to cut out the front. So from, sorry, it's not showing very well, I made a mistake with the camera, but you place it. I used 9.5 for the drape. It depends on how you want it to fall. You can use 7 if you don't really want it that big. You can use 8, you can use 10 maybe and above. Remember that higher you go, the more opening, the more it's going to open, unless you want to wear it with a tube. And so from the neck, from the shoulder, I drew a straight line. I'm trying to connect it from there. Then after connecting it from there, you trace it from the shoulder. Please don't trace the neckline. Don't trace the neckline. Just trace it straight, then curve it to the shoulder slope, down to your armhole. Don't go and start connecting it to your neck, to the back neck. No, don't draw it. Just draw it straight. I was not drawing it very. To your shoulder slant, extend it to your armhole, down to your waist. That is the way you cut the material. Then cut the lining. Use the same fabric to cut the front lining. This is the outcome of the jumpsuit. Though this is not for her, it's not her perfect size, is a little tight on her, but this is, if you want the sewing tutorial, drop a comment and I'll drop the video on how to sew it. Thank you. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.